"Look at her dress, Elijah. It's practically falling apart," Kira sneered, her voice echoing in the marble hallway. "She actually thinks a judge will hand over custody to someone who can't even afford a decent haircut." Hina gripped her files until her knuckles turned white, staring at the floor. "Sign the surrender, Hina," Elijah Prescott said, checking his Rolex. "Don't make me destroy you in there. You're a liability. You're nothing." Hina looked up, eyes dry and cold. "I'm not signing anything, and by noon you'll wish I was nothing." The air in the courtroom of the Honorable Judge Whitney Kingsley was always frigid, but today it felt particularly lethal. To Hina Harrington, sitting alone at the plaintiff's table with her worn-out leather satchel, the room felt less like a hall of justice and more like an operating theatre where she was scheduled for dissection. On the opposing side, the team representing Elijah Prescott looked like a phalanx of sharks in Italian wool. There was Elijah himself, looking every bit the tech mogul he had become, tanned, fit, and projecting an air of bored irritation. Beside him sat Kira Valentine, his fiancée and the current chief marketing officer of his empire, Prescott Dynamics. She was scrolling through her phone, her crimson nails tapping against the screen, occasionally whispering something into Elijah's ear that made him smirk. But the real threat wasn't the ex-husband or the new girlfriend. It was the man standing at the podium, Quentin Ellington. Ellington was the kind of lawyer whose reputation arrived 5 minutes before he did. He didn't just win cases, he incinerated the opposition. He was known in the city's private legal circles as the Silencer. "Your Honor," Ellington began, his voice a smooth baritone that filled the room without effort. "We are wasting the court's valuable time. Ms. Harrington's petition for increased spousal support and full custody is not only baseless, it is delusional. We have presented financial records, character witness statements, and psychological evaluations that clearly demonstrate she is unfit to provide the lifestyle the child is accustomed to." Hina felt the heat rise in her cheeks. The lifestyle they were talking about was a fabrication. Her son, Leo, didn't care about the Aspen ski trips or the private tutors Elijah paid for, but never met. Leo cared that Hina was there to tuck him in every night. "Objection, Your Honor," Samuel Wolfe said, standing up. Samuel was Hina's lawyer. He was a stark contrast to Ellington. Older, with a suit that had seen better days and hair that was perpetually disheveled, Samuel looked like a public defender who had gotten lost. But Hina knew better. Samuel Wolfe had a mind like a steel trap, though today even he looked weary. "Mr. Ellington is characterizing my client's financial struggles caused by Mr. Prescott's sudden abandonment, as a character flaw," Samuel argued. Judge Whitney Kingsley adjusted her glasses, peering down from the bench. She was a stern woman, known for her no-nonsense approach to family law. "Mr. Wolfe, your client is currently unemployed and living in a one-bedroom apartment in the Lower East District. Mr. Prescott is offering a generous settlement. Why are we still here?" "Because the settlement comes with a gag order, Your Honor," Samuel said quietly. "And a relinquishment of all future claims to intellectual property." Kira Valentine let out a sharp, audible laugh. She covered her mouth quickly, but the damage was done. The disrespect hung in the air. Ellington smiled, a shark baring its teeth. "Ms. Harrington was a receptionist, Your Honor. The idea that she has any claim to the intellectual property of Prescott Dynamics, a multi-billion-dollar AI infrastructure firm, is frankly insulting to the engineers who actually built it. She is using this claim to extort more money from a man who has already been more than generous." Hina stood up. She hadn't meant to, but the lie tasted like ash in her mouth. "I wasn't just a receptionist." The room went silent. Elijah finally looked at her, his eyes cold and dead. "Sit down, Miss Harrington," Judge Kingsley warned. "I wrote the initial code for the Sphinx algorithm," Hina said, her voice trembling but gaining strength. "On our kitchen table, before there was an office, before there was Kira." "And do you have proof?" Ellington asked, his tone dripping with condescension. "A patent? A copyright? A signed contract?" Hina looked at Samuel. They both knew the answer. She had trusted her husband. She hadn't signed anything. "No," Hina whispered. "Then you have nothing," Ellington declared, turning back to the judge. "Your Honor, this is a shakedown. Pure and simple. We move to dismiss the IP claims and finalize the custody arrangement based on the current financial standings. Ms. Harrington is unstable and impoverished. She cannot provide for the child." Elijah leaned forward, speaking into his microphone for the first time. "I just want what's best for Leo. I don't want him raised in squalor." The word hit Henna like a physical blow. Squalor. She kept their apartment spotless. She worked 2 waitressing jobs to pay for Leo's art classes. Judge Kingsley sighed, rubbing her temples. "I am inclined to agree with Mr. Ellington. Mrs. Harrington, unless you can produce material evidence of your contributions or a sudden change in your financial status by the next hearing on Friday, I will have no choice but to rule in favor of Mr. Prescott's terms, and I will likely grant him primary custody." "Friday?" Samuel stammered. "Your Honor, that's in 3 days." "Then you better get to work," Judge Kingsley said, banging the gavel. As the bailiff called, "All rise," Kira Valentine gathered her designer bag. She walked past Henna, pausing just long enough to whisper, "You should have taken the money, honey. Now you lose the kid and you'll still be broke. You're embarrassing yourself." Elijah didn't even look at her. He was already on the phone, discussing a merger with Jimena Sterling, the CEO of the rival tech firm trying to buy them out. Henna stood frozen as they left. The humiliation burned, but beneath it, something else was catching fire. A cold, hard resolve. They thought she was just the ex-wife. They thought she was just the mother. They forgot she was the architect. The rain in the city always seemed to find Henna, no matter where she walked. By the time she and Samuel reached his small, cluttered office above a bakery on 4th Street, they were both soaked. Samuel collapsed into his creaking leather chair and sighed. "Henna, we have a problem. Kingsley isn't bluffing. Ellington has painted you as a gold digger, and without a paper trail, the law is on their side. The Sphinx algorithm is the backbone of a $3 billion company. Courts don't like upsetting billion-dollar apple carts for he said, she said disputes." Henna stared at the window, watching the neon sign of the bakery flicker. It wasn't he said, she said, Samuel. It was theft. Elijah couldn't code his way out of a paper bag. He was the salesman. I was the back end. "I believe you," Samuel said softly. "But belief isn't evidence. We need a smoking gun, and we have 48 hours." The office door chimed, and Hannah Noble walked in. Hannah was Henna's best friend since college, and currently worked as a forensic accountant for a mid-tier firm. She was carrying a box of donuts and a thick stack of papers. "I brought sugar and bad news," Hannah said, dumping the files on Samuel's desk. "I've been digging through the public filings for Prescott Dynamics like you asked. It's a fortress. They have shell companies inside shell companies. It's the Russian doll method of hiding assets." "Who is managing the books?" Samuel asked, grabbing a donut. "Quentin Rockwell," Hannah said. "Ellington's son. He runs the financial side of the law firm. They're keeping it all in the family." Hannah picked up a file marked Sterling Merger. Elijah mentioned Jimena Sterling. They're trying to sell the company. If they sell before the divorce is finalized and your IP claim is dismissed, Hannah said grimly. The assets convert to cash, get moved offshore, and you'll never see a dime. Elijah becomes liquid, and you become a footnote. Henna closed her eyes. She remembered the nights, 3 years ago, when Elijah would come home drunk, panicking that the investors were going to pull out because the beta version wasn't working. She remembered sitting at his computer, rewriting the kernel, fixing the latency issues, creating the very logic that made the AI think. She had done it to save their family. He had used it to replace her. Wait, Hina said, her eyes snapping open. The merger. If Jimena Sterling is buying the company, she's doing due diligence, right? Aggressive due diligence, Hannah confirmed. Sterling doesn't buy lemons. The Sphinx algorithm, Hina murmured. It has a fail-safe. Samuel stopped chewing. A what? A fail-safe. A signature, Hina corrected herself. When I wrote the core code, I was worried about version control. I embedded a digital watermark in the compilation sequence. It's invisible unless you know exactly where to look. It ties the software's root access to a specific biometric key. Biometric? Samuel leaned forward. Elijah's fingerprint. Henna shook her head. No. Mine. Silence filled the room. The sound of the rain outside seemed to fade. You're telling me, Samuel said slowly, that the source code of $1 billion company is physically keyed to you. Only the kernel updates, Hena clarified. Elijah has been running on the version I finished 2 years ago. He hasn't updated the core because he can't. That's why the system has been lagging lately. That's why he's desperate to sell to Sterling. He knows the tech is about to plateau and crash because he locked the only person who can fix it out of the building. Hannah let out a low whistle. If Sterling finds out the tech she's buying is a ticking time bomb that only the ex-wife can defuse, the deal implodes. And the stock price crashes, Samuel added, a grin slowly spreading across his face. But how do we prove it? We can't get a subpoena for the source code in 2 days. Ellington will block it. We don't need a subpoena, a deep voice said from the doorway. They all turned. Standing there, dripping wet in a trench coat, was Uriel Dalton. Uriel was a ghost, a private investigator Samuel used only when the law failed. He was a man of few words and even fewer morals, usually employed to find things people wanted to stay lost. Who are you? Hannah asked, stepping back. Friend of Samuel's, Uriel grunted. He walked over to the desk and dropped a USB drive on top of the files. You were looking for the Russian doll money trail. I found where the smallest doll lives. Samuel plugged the drive in. What is this, Uriel? Audio, Uriel said, and banking records from the Cayman Islands, specifically from a trust called the Obsidian Ledger. It's not under Elijah's name. Whose name is it under? Hina asked. Uriel looked at her, his expression unreadable. It's under Kira Valentine's name. But the deposits correspond exactly to the dates of the development milestones of the software. Elijah has been siphoning company profits to her to hide them from the marital assets pool. That's fraud, but that's not the best part. What's the best part? Hina asked. The audio, Uriel said. I bugged the boardroom at Prescott Dynamics 2 weeks ago. I have Elijah on tape, admitting he doesn't know how the algorithm works. He says, and I quote, "If Hina ever figures out she still holds the keys to the castle, we are all dead in the water." Hina felt a chill run down her spine. He knows. He knows, Uriel confirmed. That's why they are humiliating you. That's why they are trying to destroy you. They are terrified. Samuel stood up, the weariness gone from his posture. He looked like a general preparing for war. Hina, Samuel said, his voice steady. They want to play dirty? Let's show them what dirty looks like. But we don't just want to win the case. We want to expose the lie." "How?" Hena asked. "The hearing on Friday," Samuel said. "We don't just present the audio. We trigger the failsafe." "In court?" Hannah gasped. "In court," Samuel nodded. "Hena, can you remotely access the system if you have a connection?" "If I have a connection to the main server, yes," Hena said. "But the courtroom doesn't have that kind of access." "Himena Sterling will be there," Uriel interjected. "She's observing the final hearing to ensure the liability, that's you, Hena, is removed before she signs the check. She carries a live uplink to the Prescott servers on her tablet for monitoring." Henna's mind raced. "If I can get within 20 feet of Himena's tablet with my phone, I can bridge the connection. I can initiate the biometric request. The entire Prescott Dynamics network will freeze and ask for User 1 authorization. And when Elijah can't unlock it," Samuel finished, "and you can—" "Shock and awe," Hannah whispered. Samuel looked at Henna. "This is risky. If it fails, you go to jail for cyber tampering. If it works, you own them." Henna thought of Leo. She thought of the sneer on Kira's face. She thought of the years of work she had poured into a dream that was stolen from her. "Do it," Henna said. "Let's burn it down." Friday morning arrived with a heavy grey sky, mirroring the tension that gripped the city's legal district. The courtroom was packed. Word had spread that the high-profile Prescott versus Harrington case was concluding, and the media sharks were circling. Henna walked into the courthouse. She wasn't wearing the worn coat from Tuesday. She wore a sharp, navy blue blazer she had borrowed from Hannah, her hair pulled back in a severe, professional bun. She didn't look like a victim anymore. She looked like a CEO. Kira Valentine noticed the change immediately. As Henna passed the defense table, Kira leaned over. "Nice jacket. Goodwill having a sale?" "Enjoy the view, Kira," Henna said calmly, not breaking stride. "It's the last time you'll be looking down on anyone." Kira frowned, a flicker of unease crossing her perfectly made-up face. She nudged Elijah. "She's up to something." "She's desperate," Elijah dismissed, adjusting his tie. "Ellington will crush her in 10 minutes. In the back of the courtroom, a woman in a sharp white power suit sat with an iPad on her lap. It was Himena Sterling. She looked bored, checking the live server stats of Prescott Dynamics on her screen. The graph showed steady, green lines. Profit, efficiency. Samuel Wolfe arranged his papers. He didn't have the mountain of boxes Ellington had. He had one single red folder and a laptop. "All rise," the bailiff bellowed. Judge Whitney Kingsley took her seat, looking more impatient than usual. "Mr. Wolfe, you promised me compelling new evidence today. If this is another character reference from a neighbor, I will hold you in contempt." "No neighbors, Your Honor," Samuel said, his voice surprisingly loud. "Today, we intend to prove that the asset distribution model proposed by Mr. Prescott is fundamentally flawed because the primary asset, Prescott Dynamics, is built on stolen property." "Objection!" Quentin Ellington shot up. "Res judicata. We have established nothing," Samuel cut in. "Your Honor, Mr. Prescott claims to be the sole creator of the Sphinx algorithm. If that is true, he should be able to explain the current anomaly in the system." "What anomaly?" Elijah asked, looking confused. Samuel nodded to Henna. Henna slipped her hand into her pocket, tapping a sequence onto her phone. It was a simple Bluetooth handshake protocol she had written years ago. It sought out the strongest local signal connected to the Prescott domain. It found Himena Sterling's iPad in row 3. In the back of the room, Himena frowned. Her screen flickered. The green lines turned red. A large dialog box popped up. "System kernel lockdown. Authorization required." "Mr. Wolfe, what are you doing?" Judge Kingsley asked. "Just a demonstration, Your Honor," Samuel said. Suddenly, Phones began to buzz at the defense table. Elijah's phone, Kira's phone, even Ellington's smartwatch. "What is going on?" Elijah hissed, looking at his screen. It was black, save for a blinking cursor. "Your Honor," Samuel said. "At this moment, the servers of Prescott Dynamics have entered a fail-safe mode. This happens when the core code detects an unauthorized administrative override. It locks down to prevent theft." "Turn it off," Elijah snapped at Henna. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything, Elijah," Henna said calmly, standing up. "The system is just asking for its creator. If you wrote it, you can unlock it. Go ahead, enter the admin key." The courtroom was deadly silent. Every eye turned to Elijah Prescott, the tech genius, the mogul. It's a glitch," Elijah stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. "Ellington, make her stop." "Mr. Prescott," Judge Kingsley said, her eyes narrowing, "if you are the sole architect of this software, surely you can resolve a system error." "It's not an error," Hina's voice rang out, clear and authoritative. "It's a signature. My signature." Henna turned to look directly at Jimena Sterling in the gallery. "Ms. Sterling, I believe your tablet is currently bridging the connection. Would you mind bringing it forward?" Jimena Sterling, intrigued and sensing blood in the water, stood up and walked to the bar. She handed the tablet to the bailiff, who handed it to the judge. "It says, 'Enter biometric key for user, H. Harrington,'" Judge Kingsley read aloud. She looked up, her expression thunderous. "Mr. Prescott, care to explain why your company's software is asking for your ex-wife's fingerprint?" Elijah turned pale. Kira looked like she was about to be sick. "It's legacy code," Elijah choked out. She just did some data entry years ago." "Data entry doesn't lock a mainframe, Elijah," Hina said. She walked toward the bench. "Your Honor, may I?" Judge Kingsley hesitated, then nodded. "Proceed." Hina placed her thumb on the tablet sensor. Beep. Access granted. "Welcome back, Architect." The screen flashed green. The lockdown lifted. "Oh my God," a reporter in the front row whispered. "That establishes ownership," Samuel said, slamming his hand on the table. "But that's not the secret asset we're here to discuss. That was just the warm-up." Quentin Ellington looked like he had swallowed a lemon. He knew he had lost the IP argument, but he was a fighter. Even if she wrote a piece of the code, that doesn't negate the prenuptial agreements regarding financial assets. "There is no prenup regarding the Obsidian Ledger, is there?" Samuel interrupted. The color drained from Kira Valentine's face so fast, she looked like a corpse. Samuel pulled the USB drive from his pocket. "Your Honor, while the IP theft is significant, what we have here is evidence of massive wire fraud, money laundering, and tax evasion. Mr. Prescott hasn't just been hiding money from my client. He's been hiding it from the IRS. And he's been using Miss Valentine's offshore accounts to do it." Quentin Ellington grabbed Elijah's arm. "Shut up!" he hissed. "Don't say a word." But it was too late. The dominoes were already falling. "I didn't know!" Kira screamed, standing up. "He made me sign those papers. I didn't know what they were." "Kira!" Elijah roared. "Order!" Judge Kingsley banged her gavel, the sound cracking through the chaos like a gunshot. "Order in this court." Hina stood amidst the shouting, the accusations, and the panic of the people who had tried to destroy her. She took a deep breath. She looked at Samuel, who gave her a small, tired wink. Then she looked at Elijah, who was currently being restrained by his own lawyer. The chaos in Judge Kingsley's courtroom didn't subside. It mutated. The revelation of the Obsidian Ledger hadn't just stunned the room. It had sucked the oxygen out of Elijah Prescott's world. "Sit down!" Judge Kingsley bellowed, pointing her gavel like a weapon at Elijah, who was standing, veins bulging in his neck, glaring at Kira. "Mr. Prescott, If you say one more word to Miss Valentine, I will have you remanded into custody immediately. This is a civil hearing, but you are dangerously close to making it criminal right now." Elijah slumped back into his chair, physically deflated. Beside him, Kira Valentine was weeping, not the delicate tears of a victim, but the ugly, gasping sobs of someone realizing the parachute didn't open. She was shaking her head, muttering, "He told me it was tax optimization. He told me it was legal." Quentin Ellington, the silencer, was silent for the first time in his career. He was furiously typing on his phone, likely trying to liquidate his own connection to the firm before the forensic auditors arrived. "Here is my ruling," Judge Kingsley said, her voice cutting through the noise. "Effective immediately, all assets belonging to Prescott Dynamics, Elijah Prescott, and Kira Valentine are frozen pending a federal audit. Custody of the minor, Leo Harrington, is granted solely to the mother, Hina Harrington, until further notice. Furthermore, I am issuing a temporary restraining order. Mr. Prescott, you are not to come within 500 feet of Ms. Harrington or the company headquarters." "You can't do that," Elijah shouted, jumping up again. "The company is in the middle of a merger. If I'm not there, the deal with Sterling collapses. The stock will go to zero." "The deal is already dead, Elijah," a cool voice said from the gallery. Jimena Sterling walked forward. She moved with the lethal grace of a panther. She didn't look at Elijah. She looked past him, directly at Hina. "Ms. Sterling," Judge Kingsley nodded. "You have standing here?" "As the primary shareholder of the acquiring firm, yes," Jimena said. "I was prepared to offer $3 billion for Prescott Dynamics. That offer is rescinded. I don't buy crime scenes." Elijah looked like he had been shot. "Jimena, wait. We can explain. This is it's a domestic dispute blown out of proportion." Jimena finally turned her gaze to him. It was withered. "You locked me out of my own due diligence, Elijah. You lied about the IP ownership, and you are currently being investigated for laundering money through your fiancé's shell accounts. You are radioactive." She turned to Henna. The room held its breath. "Ms. Harrington," Jimena said, her tone shifting from icy to professional. "It appears you are the actual architect of the Sphinx algorithm, the key holder." "I am," Hina said, her voice steady, though her heart was hammering against her ribs. "Then you are the one I should be negotiating with," Jimena said. "My offer stands, but not for the company, for the code. I will buy the Sphinx source code from you directly. $500 million. Cash. Today." A collective gasp swept through the room. Kira Valentine stopped crying and looked up, eyes wide with greed and shock. Elijah looked sick. 500 million. It was enough to buy a new life. Enough to disappear. Enough to never worry about rent or court fees or worn-out coats ever again. Hina looked at Samuel. He gave a subtle nod. It was a good exit strategy. Take the money. Leave the wreckage for Elijah to burn in. But then, Henna looked at Elijah. She saw the panic in his eyes, but also the calculation. If she sold the code, he would spin it. He would say she stole it, sold it, and ran. He would play the victim in the media. He would use his connections to fight her for the money for the next 10 years. And more importantly, the Sphinx wasn't just code. It was her life's work. It was the logic she had written while rocking Leo to sleep. It was hers. "No," Hena said. Jimena raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me? I'm not selling the code," Hena said clearly, "and I'm not selling the company. Prescott Dynamics is mine. I built the foundation. I wrote the engine. And now I'm going to take it back." "You can't run a multinational tech firm," Elijah spat out, laughing nervously. You're a receptionist who got lucky with a kernel patch." "I'm the woman who just locked you out of your own life, Elijah," Hina replied coldly. "Watch me." Judge Kingsley banged the gavel one final time. "Court is adjourned. Mr. Wolfe, prepare the transfer of executive power orders. Mr. Ellington, good luck." As the bailiffs moved in to escort Elijah and Kira out, separately, Hina gathered her files. Jimena Sterling lingered, watching her. "You're making a mistake," Jimena said softly. "Elijah is a cornered rat. He won't just let you take the chair. He'll burn the building down with you inside." "Let him try," Hina said. "I brought matches. The headquarters of Prescott Dynamics was a glass and steel monolith in the city's tech district. For years, Hina had only ever seen the lobby, dropping off lunch for Elijah in the early days, or later being escorted out by security when she tried to serve him divorce papers. Walking in on Monday morning felt surreal. She wasn't wearing a visitor badge. She was wearing the CEO's clearance card, recovered from the safe in Elijah's penthouse by Uriel Dalton under court supervision. Beside her, Samuel Wolfe looked uncomfortable in the sleek, minimalist lobby. "I feel like I'm inside a giant iPhone," he muttered. "Are you sure about this, Hina? We could have taken the settlement. The audit is going to take months. You're walking into a hostile environment." "I have to see what else he broke, Samuel," Hina said. "The Obsidian ledger was just the money. But the code, the glitch I saw in court, wasn't just a lockdown. The system was sluggish. It felt heavy. They took the private elevator to the top floor. When the doors opened, the silence was deafening. The executive suite was empty of Elijah's usual entourage, but the main open-plan floor was full of developers, project managers, and sales reps. They all stopped and stared. To them, Hina was the enemy. Elijah had spent years painting her as the crazy ex-wife, the leech, the anchor dragging down their stock options. "Get back to work," a voice snapped. Quentin Ellington's son, Quentin Rockwell, the CFO, stepped out of Elijah's office. He was younger than his father, sharper, with the kind of face that belonged on a rowing team poster. He blocked the door to the CEO's office. "You can't be in here," Rockwell said, crossing his arms. "The court order freezes assets. It doesn't grant you executive control over operations." "Actually, it does," Samuel said, handing him a thick document. Subsection 4, Paragraph B. In the event of an investigation regarding IP theft where the plaintiff is proven to be the primary creator, stewardship of the intellectual property reverts to the creator to prevent sabotage. "Get out of her way, Mr. Rockwell." Rockwell sneered. "This company isn't just code. It's people. It's relationships. You think you can just waltz in here and lead? Half the engineering team is threatening to walk out. They're loyal to Elijah." "They're loyal to their paychecks," Hina said, stepping up to him. "And considering you and Elijah drained the liquidity pool into offshore accounts, I'd say their next paycheck is in serious danger unless I fix the product. Move." Rockwell hesitated, then stepped aside, a mocking smile on his lips. "It's all yours. Good luck finding the bodies." Hina walked into Elijah's office. It smelled of expensive cologne and fear. She sat behind the massive oak desk and plugged in her laptop. "Hannah," Hina said into her earpiece, "I'm in. Are you seeing the network?" Hannah Noble, working from a remote, secure location, replied instantly. "I see it. I'm scrubbing the financial database now. But Hina, there's something weird in the server logs. Huge data packets are being sent out every night at 3 a.m. "Sent where?" Hina asked, bringing up the terminal. "Not to the cloud," Hannah said. "Direct P2P transfer. To a server farm in Belarus?" Hina frowned. Prescott Dynamics built infrastructure for U.S. hospitals and logistics firms. Sending data to Belarus was a massive compliance violation. It was illegal. "Samuel," Hena said, "look at this." Before Samuel could look, the large monitor on the office wall flickered to life. It was a YouTube notification. "Breaking. Elijah Prescott. Break silence. The truth about my crazy ex." "He's live," Samuel said, pulling out his phone. "On the Tech Titan podcast channel. That channel has 10 million subscribers." Hena clicked the link. The video filled the screen. Elijah was sitting in a dim studio, looking haggard, unshaven, and sympathetic. He wasn't wearing his suits. He was wearing a simple hoodie. He looked like a victim. "I built this company from nothing," Elijah was saying, his voice cracking with emotion. "I worked 18-hour days, and yes, Hena helped in the beginning. She did some data entry. She was supportive. But after Leo was born, she changed." The host, a bro-science influencer named Jax, nodded solemnly. "Postpartum? Worse," Elijah lied smoothly. "She became paranoid, jealous. She started planting back doors in my life. The biometric lock you saw in court? That wasn't her claiming ownership. That was a trap she set years ago, because she was obsessed with controlling me. She's a hacker, Jax. A black hat cyber criminal. She didn't write the Sphinx algorithm. She held it hostage." Hena watched, horrified. The live chat on the side of the video was scrolling so fast it was a blur. User 123. Whoa, she sounds psycho. Crypto King. Never trust a bitter ex. Alpha Wolf. Hashtag Free Elijah. "And the money?" Jax asked. "The offshore accounts?" "Set up," Elijah said, wiping a fake tear. "She hacked my finance team. She moved the money to frame Kira and me. She wants to destroy the company, because if she can't have me, no one can." "He's projecting," Hena whispered. "He's accusing me of everything he actually did." "It's working," Samuel said grimly. "Look at the stock ticker." On Hena's second screen, the Prescott Dynamics stock was plummeting, but the sentiment analysis was shifting. The public was turning against her. The narrative of the evil genius hacker mom was sexier than the truth. "He's burning the reputation of the company to save his own skin," Hena realized. "He doesn't care if the stock tanks as long as I go down with it." Suddenly, Hena's phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. "Answer it," Uriel said, walking into the office. He had been sweeping the room for bugs. Hena put it on speaker. "Hello? You have a nice office, Mom," a distorted voice said. Hena's blood froze. "Where is Leo?" "Leo is fine," the voice said. It wasn't Elijah, it was deeper. "He's at school, but you should check the news. CPS just received an anonymous tip about a volatile and unstable environment at the Harrington residence. They're on their way to the school now." The line went dead. Hena grabbed her bag. "They called CPS. They're going to take Leo." "Go!" Samuel shouted. "I'll handle the office. Uriel, go with her." Hena ran. The elevator felt too slow. The lobby felt like a maze. She burst out into the rain, Uriel close behind her in his car. Elijah wasn't just fighting for money anymore. He was fighting dirty. And he had just pushed Hena past the point of redemption. The scene at Leo's elementary school was a nightmare. 2 police cars and a sleek black sedan with government plates were parked out front. Parents were whispering, pointing. Hena screeched to a halt in Uriel's sedan. She jumped out, ignoring the rain. "Ms. Harrington!" A woman in a grey suit intercepted her. "I'm Officer Miller, Child Protective Services. You need to calm down." "Where is my son?" Hena demanded, her voice shaking but fierce. "Leo is safe. He is currently in the principal's office," Officer Miller said. "We received credible reports that you are involved in high-level cybercrime and that you have threatened a murder-suicide regarding your ex-husband. given the volatility of the situation. "That is a lie!" Hina screamed. "Elijah Prescott is lying to you. He's on a podcast right now spinning a fairy tale. Ma'am, we have digital evidence sent to us," the officer said sternly. "Emails sent from your IP address, threatening violence. Until we can verify the source, we have to place Leo in emergency foster care for 72 hours. "No!" Hina lunged forward, but Uriel grabbed her arm, holding her back. "Hina, stop!" Uriel hissed in her ear. "If you fight them, you prove Elijah right. You look unstable. Let them take him for the night. I will have guards on the foster home. I promise you." Hina looked at the school windows. She saw Leo looking out, confused and scared. She felt her heart shatter. 72 hours, Hina whispered, tears finally falling. "If you don't return him in 72 hours, I will sue this city into the ground." "We'll see, Ma'am," Officer Miller said. As they drove away, Hina sat in the passenger seat, silent. The grief was gone. It was replaced by a cold, calculating rage. It was the same mind state she entered when she coded. Pure logic, pure focus. Identify the bug, isolate it, delete it. "Take me to the studio," Hina said. "What?" Uriel asked. "The podcast studio. Tech Titan. It's in Brooklyn. Take me there." "Hina, that's a bad idea," Uriel said. "Elijah is there with security. You're emotional." "I'm not emotional," Hina said. She opened her laptop. "I'm going to decompile him." She started typing. "Hannah, are you there?" "I'm here, Hina. I saw the CPS report. I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry. Be fast," Hina said. "I need you to trace the Belarus packets. I need to know exactly what data he was selling. And I need you to find the email spoofing tool he used to send those threats to CPS. It came from the office, didn't it?" "Tracing," Hannah typed furiously. "Yes, it came from Rockwell's terminal. But Hina, the Belarus data, it's not hospital records." "What is it?" "It's facial recognition data," Hannah said, her voice trembling. "From the schools. Prescott Dynamics installed security cameras in 50 districts last year. Elijah is selling biometric data of minors to a foreign surveillance firm to train their AI." Hannah felt sick. He wasn't just a fraud. He was a monster. He was selling kids' faces, including potentially Leo's friends. "Send it to me," Hina said. "Everything." Uriel pulled up to the converted warehouse in Brooklyn that housed the Tech Titan studio. There was a small crowd of paparazzi outside, waiting for Elijah to emerge. Hina didn't wait. She walked right through them. "Hey, that's the wife. That's the hacker," a photographer shouted. Hina ignored them. She walked up to the security guard at the door. He was a big guy, arms crossed. "Private property," he grunted. Hina held up her phone. On the screen was a live video feed of the security guard's bank account. "You have $3,000 in your checking account, Dave," Hina said calmly. "And you have a mortgage payment due on the 15th. Elijah Prescott is selling children's data to foreign spies. If you stop me, you're an accomplice to treason. If you let me in, you're a hero." Dave blinked. He looked at the phone, then at Hina's face. He stepped aside. Inside, the podcast was still live. Elijah was laughing at a joke the host made about alimony. Hina kicked the door to the soundproof booth open. It slammed against the wall with a thunderous bang. Elijah jumped. Jax, the host, looked around, startled. "What the hell?" Jax said. "Cut the feed." "Don't cut it," Hina ordered, her voice projecting with the authority she had found in the courtroom. She walked straight up to the microphone. "Keep it rolling. You wanted the truth? You wanted the crazy ex-wife? Here I am." "Security!" Elijah screamed, standing up. "She's got a gun." "I don't have a gun, Elijah," Hina said, placing her laptop on the table. She plugged it into the HDMI port of the studio's monitor system. I have the receipts. On the massive screen behind them, and on the live YouTube feed, watched by 300,000 people, a document appeared. Contract 44X, biometric export, Minsk. What is that? Jax asked, looking at the screen. That, Hina said, looking directly into the camera, is a sales invoice. Elijah Prescott has been harvesting video footage from American elementary schools, schools he claimed to be protecting, and selling the unencrypted facial scans to a private surveillance firm in Belarus. Elijah's face went white. That's a deep fake. She forged it. And this, Henna clicked a key. An audio file played. It was Elijah's voice, clear as day. I don't care if it's legal, Rockwell. The Russians pay in crypto. Just scrub the metadata and send the kids files. Who's gonna know? The parents think it's for safety. The chat room on the screen stopped scrolling. It froze in shock. Then it exploded. WTF? He's selling kids. I go to a Prescott school. Call the FBI. Elijah lunged for the laptop. Turn it off. Hina didn't flinch. Uriel Dalton stepped out from the shadows of the doorway and intercepted Elijah, shoving him back into his seat with one hand. Sit down, Elijah, Uriel growled. You wanted to use the media to destroy me, Hina said, her voice shaking with rage. You called CPS on me. You took my son. But you forgot one thing, Elijah. You built your empire on my code, and my code sees everything. Suddenly, the studio phone line began to ring. Jax stared at it. Who is that? Elijah whispered. Jax picked it up, putting it on speaker. This is Special Agent Vance with the FBI Cybercrimes Division, a voice boomed. We are watching the stream. Mr. Prescott, do not leave the building. Units are 2 minutes out. Elijah slumped to the floor, burying his face in his hands. But Hina wasn't done. She looked at the camera. And to anyone watching, she said, her eyes burning. My name is Hina Harrington. I am the CEO of Prescott Dynamics. And as of this moment, I am initiating a total recall of all data ever collected by this company. We are going dark until we are clean. She slammed the laptop shut. But as the sirens wailed in the distance, Henna's phone buzzed again. A text message. It wasn't from Hannah. It wasn't from Samuel. It was from Jimena Sterling. Impressive show, Hina. You destroyed him. But you just admitted on a federal live stream that your company committed treason. The government isn't coming to arrest just Elijah. They're coming to seize the Sphinx Code. You didn't win. You just started a war with the Department of Defense. Henna looked at the text, then at the flashing lights outside. The police cruisers were replaced by ominous black SUVs. Henna, Uriel, and Samuel were transported to a nondescript federal building in Lower Manhattan. In a stark white interrogation room, Special Agent Vance entered, followed closely by Jimena Sterling. I didn't know the FBI brought consultants to interrogations, Hina said, stiffening. Ms. Sterling has a higher clearance than most senators, Vance replied, sitting down. She's the only reason you aren't in a black site right now. I exposed a traitor, Hina shot back. Elijah was selling children's data. I stopped it. You admitted on a global broadcast that a defense contractor was compromised, Vance countered. You triggered a geopolitical incident. The DoD uses the Sphinx algorithm for logistics. By publicly declaring it dirty, you froze military supply lines. Hina felt a cold knot in her stomach. She hadn't known about the DoD contracts. We want the source code, Vance said flatly. Unlock the biometric failsafe, hand over the keys, and we drop the cyber-terrorism charges. And my son? CPS will process his case. No, Hina said. I wrote that code. If you seize it, you'll just patch the cracks. I won't hand my life's work to a government that let my ex-husband sell kids' faces for 3 years. You are in no position to bargain. Actually, she is, Jimena interrupted, placing a tablet on the table. Agent Vance, your team has failed to bypass her lock. The Sphinx recognizes her logic. Force it, and the system self-cannibalizes. You lose everything. Jimena turned to Henna. There is a third option. You go back in as the government-appointed conservator. You have 24 hours to scrub the code and restore the DoD uplinks under armed guard. Succeed, and the company is yours. Fail, and it's treason. And Leo? If you agree, he is released to Hannah Noble immediately. Once you finish, he comes home. It was a trap, an impossible deadline, but it was the only path to Leo. Hina looked at Vance. I need a terminal. And coffee. Vance slid a document across the table. Welcome to the federal payroll, Ms. Harrington. Prescott Dynamics was under military occupation. Armed agents stood at every exit. Henna sat at Elijah's desk, the clock counting down. 23:14:00. For 6 hours, Henna worked in a fugue state, tracing the data packets sent to Minsk and deleting the malicious subroutines. Henna! Hannah's voice crackled in her ear. I found something buried in the root directory. Project Icarus. It's linked to Elijah's Apple Watch. Agent Vance! Hina called out. Does Elijah still have his watch? Negative. Vance checked his radio. Prison intake removed it 30 minutes ago. The signal is lost, Hina said, watching the code turn red. The system thinks he's dead. Icarus is initializing. It's a dead man's switch designed to overload the cooling systems and melt the servers. Evacuate! Vance shouted. No! Hina yelled. If we leave, the evidence of his treason burns. He wins. The building is a bomb, Harrington. It's a logic loop. I can stop it. Hina stared at the blinking prompt. Who is the true architect? Try Elijah, Vance yelled. Access denied. Temperature critical. Smoke curled from the vents. The floor vibrated. Think, Hina whispered. He hated you, but he needed you. He set this trap for you. She typed. LEO, incorrect. 10 seconds. Vance grabbed her arm. Wait. Hina closed her eyes. She remembered the divorce papers. The specific phrase Elijah had used to describe her. A liability. A 0. In the code, she wasn't a liability. She was the ghost. He called me nothing, Hina realized. She typed, null. The screen froze. The red code turned blue. The grinding noise stopped as the fans reversed. Project Icarus terminated. Welcome, admin. Hina slumped over the keyboard. Vance looked at the screen, then at her, a newfound respect in his eyes. Building secure. Hina didn't celebrate. She sat back up. I'm not done. I still have to scrub the spyware. She worked through the night, purging the corruption and installing a transparent ledger. When the clock hit 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds, she hit enter. The system rebooted. Clean. Hina stood up, legs shaking. Agent Vance, get my son. 3 months later, the federal courthouse steps were packed. Elijah Prescott, in an orange jumpsuit, was led away to serve 20 years for treason and fraud. Kira Valentine had turned state's witness, her career over. But the crowd was there for Hina. She walked out, holding Leo's hand, wearing a simple white suit. She looked radiant with peace. Miss Harrington, are you keeping the company? A reporter shouted. We are converting Prescott Dynamics into Aegis Systems, Hina announced. A public benefit corporation. Our mandate is protection, not profit. And we are launching the Leo Initiative to provide legal defense for single parents facing financial abuse. The crowd cheered. People are calling you the digital Robin Hood. Hina smiled. I'm not a hero. I'm just a mother who did her homework. She looked into the camera. To anyone who has been told they are nothing, don't let them hide your assets. You are the asset. As she turned to leave, Jimena Sterling was waiting. You look good, Hena, Jimena said. I saved my money on the merger, and the DoD wants to expand the contract. They want us to build the next generation of cybersecurity. Us? Sterling Harrington, Jimena proposed. I handle the sharks, you handle the code. 50-50. No hidden ledgers. Hena looked at Samuel, who nodded. I'll think about it. But first I have a date. Oh? Who's the lucky guy? Hena looked down at Leo. Pizza in the arcade. The best kind, Jimena agreed. Hena got into the car, looking back at the courthouse one last time. She had rewritten her life, and this time there were no back doors. The fall of Elijah Prescott became a cautionary tale in Silicon Valley, but the rise of Hena Harrington became a legend. Prescott Dynamics was rebranded as Aegis Systems. It became the gold standard for ethical AI. The Sphinx algorithm was open-sourced for educational purposes, allowing students around the world to learn from the code that almost started a war. Hena didn't move into a penthouse. She bought a nice brownstone in Brooklyn, near the park. She kept her old friends. Hannah Noble became the CFO of Aegis. Samuel Wolfe became the general counsel. Uriel Dalton. Well, Uriel was still a ghost. But he was their ghost, keeping watch over the family that had adopted him. One rainy afternoon, Hena sat in her home office. A notification popped up on her screen. It was a YouTube comment on her old video, the one where she exposed Elijah. User, single mom of 2. I was going to sign the papers today. I was going to give up. Then I watched this. I fired my lawyer. I'm fighting. Thank you. Hena smiled, typing a reply. Hena_official. Fight hard and check the hidden accounts. She closed the laptop. Leo ran into the room, holding a drawing. Mom, look, I designed a robot. Hena looked at the drawing. It was messy, colorful, and brilliant. It looks amazing, Leo, she said, pulling him into a hug. What does it do? It protects people, Leo said proudly. Perfect, Hena whispered, kissing his forehead. That's exactly what we do. If this story moved you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about justice, redemption, and the truth coming to light. Remember, the truth is the only asset that never depreciates. See you in the next video.